I got a funny story about how I started. Well, not really how I started out LARP, but when I first started LARP, right?
Why didn't this come up when we did the first episode? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of yet another LARP podcast. I'm Mark, aka Ilfson. With me,
I'm Matt, aka Bodor,
and our very special guest on the podcast today, Mr. Edd AKA Skal Ilfson.
Hello.
Of Birchen Hall. Welcome. Thanks for coming on, Ed. We appreciate
thanks
it.
for having me.
We're very excited to learn about how to earn money in 10 easy steps at Empire.
10 easy steps.
How to make your first million thrones by Skal Ilfson. In 1 year. Yeah.
So, why are we here today, Matthew?
We are here today to talk about the economy of Empire LRP, and I guess as much about the economy as we can. I guess so. We're talking about small stuff about like players' economy. There we go. So not necessarily the big world, but player economy. You know, money and materials, and that is why we've brought on a super special guest, my favourite Birchen Haller, Ed, who is very experienced when it comes to trading of coin and resources and stuff. So I think he's probably the best person to talk about it with. So yeah, that's why we got you on, Ed.
Before we do get into that, though, I have forgotten already what we normally do. I would like to know, and I'm sure everyone watching would like to know, how you first got into LARP, Ed.
Oh, that's a question.
Yeah, if you can remember that far back.
Many moons back. So I started LARP 5 to 6 years ago now. I worked with a colleague, obviously a colleague who did a lot of medieval reenactment stuff. So I went along with her to one of those. Thought this is alright. It's not really my thing. But then she started talking about LARP, and then I met Verity, one of our other hall members, and she was like, "Oh, we're going to go to this LARP." Her and her then boyfriend. And did you want to come along? I was like, yeah, I've been recommended it by a couple of people now. It's something that's interesting, so I went along. That was the Great Muddening, as it has been dubbed, and that didn't break my spirit, so I kept coming back like a sadist. So, you know, that's how I got into it. And then throughout the years, I met all of you lot, and it kind of just continued on every year after year.
And now look at us.
That's kind of it, really. Yeah, it's addictive.
So your first event was the Muddening?
I had a crap little pop-up tent that leaked. And,
oh my god.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show, for anyone who might be watching that hasn't gone to their first event or hasn't had the pleasure of the Muddening or an equivalent yet, just how addictive Empire LARP and LARP in general is. Like, you can have this horrendous event and it'd be really, really horrible, but here you are, 5 years later, you're still doing it.
So the main stick-out memory from that event was it was me and Verity and Sam sat around a little tiny fire cooking little tiny steaks, and it being drizzling and wet and cold, but it was still just a fucking great time. Just an absolute great time. That's like stand-up thing.
Oh, we didn't camp together at the Muddening then.
Well, was it the Muddening when we had the rivers of water through the camp?
That was Muddening number 2.
That was a different event.
That was a different event.
Was in the main when we were in the we were in the main field, weren't we? But
maybe we didn't go into the forest without you guys, I don't think.
No.
So we must have been
up as one unit.
Our first time in the forest was with Birchen Hall and Haddies all together. So yeah.
Yeah, Sam's got it. You're behind Sam V.
Yeah, I think we spoke. I think Sam got in contact with me on Facebook, and then we were like, "Yeah, let's camp next to each other." So we sort of ignored the camp plan and went and camped next to each other. I got a funny story. about how I started. Well, not really how I started out LARP, but when I first started LARP, right?
Why didn't this come up when we did the
know.
first episode?
And actually, I went out for my Alex's, my wife's birthday party, and I went out with my sister and my mum, and we sat at a table, and I was like talking. I think I mentioned it to my mum. She was like, "Oh, go on, tell your sister then," or something like that. Like, what you doing? I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing." She's like, "Is it LARP?" I was like, "How do you know about LARP?" She's like, "I used to do it at uni." I was like, "What?" I was like, "No way! How do I not know that?" She was like, "Yeah, I used to do it. Like, I joined a LARP group when she was at Warwick Uni." And I was like, "No way."
What are the chances? Is that your sister who now goes to Empire?
Like a year and a half later, she joined Empire. So,
Whoa.
yeah, it's just quite a
The secret sleeper LARPer.
Yeah, I was just like, how
Yeah,
do
right.
you know about LARP? And she was like, I used to do it. And I was like, no way.
Oh god.
Little story. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's good. I'll edit that back into episode 1.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
just
Pull
chunk
down.
it in,
Yeah.
erase my video, it'll be fine.
Brief intermission. We need to retcon a previous episode. Excellent. Well, that's cool. Yeah, and obviously you're really enjoying it because you're still here. Any plans to do any other LARPs? I kind of know the answer to this, but it's nice to talk about.
Kind of, but not really. I've got like mutterings in the back of my head about various different ones going on. Mostly the closest stuff that obviously a lot of our group go to. So, what was it, Feast for Your Eyes, ILARP? But no real concrete plans, to be honest.
No, that's fair. Empire does take up quite a lot of time in the LARP calendar. Not just, obviously, it's only 4 events a year, but also it's 4 events a year. For some people, that's a lot to get to, you know, for holiday restrictions and stuff, and just money that goes into LARP in general. Yeah, it's not easy to do multiple LARPs, but when Anvil implodes in on itself,
in about a year.
Yeah, the eventual collapse.
Yeah. Excellent.
Great snap.
Well, with that out of the way, should we get into it?
Let's full steam ahead into a real juicy episode all about monies and
everyone's gonna get rich.
Ooh. So obviously expert Edd Skal is here. I think we'll talk about the Billy Basics to start with. I've got it written down. What are resources and coin, and how do we get them? So Ed, how do we get resources and coin as a player?
So the first thing that you do is when you create your character, you select a player resource, right? So this is something that will generate resources, coins. It's effectively your character's income and at what they do. So, for instance, myself, Skal, he is a fleet master. So every season, I send my little fleet, which is a boat, out into the wider world, and I get to choose where I send it, which is one of the perks of doing a fleet. You have various other ones, so things like forests, mines, farms, businesses, all that sort of stuff, and they all generate different types of resources. Businesses and farms, they create cold hard cash, so coins.
Best resource.
Easily,
I'm
very
biased.
easy to shift. Then you have things like forests and mines, which generate FISREP resources, which are divided out into metals and woods and all that sort of stuff. Then you have things like mana sites, which generate crystal mana, which are used in rituals. And then you have, what's the other ones? Military units, which you can send your military off, much like a fleet, to go support armies and all this sort of jazz. And that will bring you back certain parts of sort of like the loot from those raids and campaigns. And then you have the religious side of it. So, trying to remember the name, like basically like a following.
A congregation, yeah.
Congregation, thank you.
Actually, it does give you a resource, doesn't it?
It does. It gives you Liao,
Mhm.
which I believe you use to vote in the synod.
Votes are done off congregation size, but Liao is used for like a bit
For
like
doing the priest stuff, isn't it?
It's worth saying that we've covered all the personal resources on one of our previous episodes, so go check out as well. I think we went a bit more in depth, but basically Ed's just covered all the base personal resources, and then you're going to get a juicy bunch of materials. So for example, Ed, if you had a mine, are you expected to walk off pickaxe in hand and go dig up some rocks in the field to get hold of your mine resources, or
That would be cool.
how do you get them? Yeah, how do you get them? Say if you start at an event, perhaps your first event, what do you go do and how do you get your hands on it?
Say, brand new event, wide-eyed, the sun is shining,
Innocent.
it's not tipping it down with rain. One of the things you want to do is go to God, which is big massive tent where PD run all like their computer systems and their sort of like the admin side of things. Yeah, exactly. And in there, at the start of the event, you get things called player packs. So in your player pack, you get your resource, you get your inventory. So if you'd gone to a previous event and given back your resources, you get those back. And you also get a nice little passport, which tells you who you are, what you've got, and what sort of other goodies you could have in your player pack. So that's the main way in which you get them. You don't have to go and do physical labor. God, I hope so.
No, that's good.
Worth mentioning, obviously, it's going to the God Games Operation Desk. Yeah, probably. God tent. Yeah, it's worth mentioning. Obviously, yeah, to get you do get your resources. You just got to go collect them at the start of the game. All the weekend. At any point throughout the weekend, actually, if you can't do it on the Thursday or the Friday or the Saturday, you can go do it on the Sunday. Maybe they might be closed for doing that Sunday, actually. But
can we talk about the bread and butter of the economy? That is the coinage.
Old hard cash.
The coinage. In case we have anyone who, I mean, it took me a very long time to remember the like how many rings to a crown and how many to a throne.
So fun times. The system is not simple. I'll say that. It's not a nice 10 base system which we have, and it's not even base system. So yeah, Mike's got lovely photos of these coins up. So the copper ones are your rings, so they're your base level coinage.
I think it's worth. Sorry for interrupting. It's worth saying that these are physical metal coins as well. They're physical coins. Yeah, they're not like cardboard cutouts. They are metal coins, which is great, and it's great production value and is very good at kind of immersing in the game. Which
it does add a lot, and they're very tactile as well. So your first ones are the rings. They base level sort of stuff. They come in 1s and 5s as coins, and it's going to be annoying. Every 8 rings.
No.
It's 20. I've already messed up. See, it's not simple. Every 20 rings makes the next denomination, which is a crown. The reason being is they did it off. Oh yeah, you can hold 20 rings on your hands and toes. That's if you haven't had any off.
If you weren't born extra lucky. Or
extra lucky with extra fingers.
You're not rubbish with a blade.
Yeah. So the next denomination is a crown. So the crown is denoted as each nation. These were generated in terms of law before we had all the nations in the empire. So back when they were made, there was only 8. So there is then 8 crowns in the next denomination, which is the throne. Crowns come in 1s and 4s, and then your big coin, the throne, is the nice big gold ones. They are 1s, 5s, 20s, and then 100s. I will say this now: in 6 years of playing, I've never seen 100 thrown coin.
There's absolutely plenty about. We're just not lucky enough to be handling that cash right now.
Yeah, I have to say the picture we've put on the screen is not a picture of our coins. It's from the
It's
wiki.
not a picture of my pocket. No, it's absolutely. We have seen 100. Oh, we did see 100 thrown coin. Sam's just put in the chat. Yeah, remember we had the auction at Birchin Hall.
I didn't
And
see
someone
it.
said, no, I didn't see it, but yeah, I remember hearing the story that someone's like, "Oh, can you change this 100 thrown coin, please?" And they're like, "No, we can't."
I was dealing with the lots, so I didn't get to see the nice fancy big coin. But these things are supposedly huge, like palm of your hand sized huge.
Well, I mean, that's the 100 thrown coin there, right? So we can kind of, yeah, it's got to be like,
yeah.
Remember the old like the £5 coin? I reckon it's about that big.
I heard it was as big as a 5-meter bear tent.
That's the throne.
Dinner plate.
I dropped it. It's that big.
Yeah, yeah. So it's got to be twice.
It's got to be fairly large.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the dominations of the thrones and the coins. And most of the time in things like your player packs and stuff like that, you'll be getting things in crowns and rings.
Yeah.
Depending on what sort of things you've put in and what sort of stuff you get back out.
Yeah. And yeah, like again, I said at the start, like it's really nice having these physical metal coins. They're really good quality as well. They're better than like they're not just a cheap metal disc. They are real nice quality. You know, you've got each coin has a different sort of face representing it. So you can actually see it here on the 100 thrown coin at the top. You've got that sort of, I'm going to say it's a wolf's head. Yeah, you've got that one. That's on every coin, and then the other side is the coin specific symbol. So you've got the throne, which is like a little, almost a castle keep type thing, and then the crown, which is some crowns, and then the rings. You've got obviously a ring and 5 rings. So I think production on that is really cool, and again, it just helps immerse yourself in the game when you've got like proper cool coins or proper solid coins that you can kind of spend and stuff, which is great. And yeah, again, like it can't be cheap what PD are doing to get this quality stuff out there, but it's great.
No, exactly. These are good coins. Yeah.
And I mean, their materials as well. The materials and stuff they do is still a good quality. You know, what I wouldn't say is good quality is the coins, because the coins are metal, and the other stuff sort of I don't know what you cast resin. Maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is on the 100 thrones.
So I heard a story that it is the hall symbol or the house symbol of whoever was part of the Imperial Mint or something like that at the time. So I always had it in my head that if I, for example, was in charge of the Imperial Mint, I would have authority to change that symbol. But I could be completely wrong there.
Oh my god, that would be great if you could do that though.
Yeah, I thought that. I was like,
you could put some silly stuff on there.
Tree on the back. No, you could have the birch tree on the back. How cool is that?
Very cool. I was thinking more like a hot dog. How funny would that be?
Just I'm talking legacy of Birchin. Imagine every coin everyone holds.
Yeah, same. We love a hot dog.
Yeah, we do eat a lot of hot dogs.
We do eat a lot of hot dogs.
It's part of our tradition. Sam says, I suspect for OC reasons they won't ever change the symbol. Yeah, you're probably right. Because I imagine the amount of money it would cost to get a new sculpt done. And I mean, I guess whenever they print new coins, that's when the new coin would be. It's a bit like Queen Elizabeth coins, you know. How long until King Charles coins come out?
This year, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, but how long till you see them, innit? They're gonna release the amount of coins they need.
I haven't seen real life coins for about 4 years.
Yeah.
Oh, you can have a £1 coin to go in your shopping trolley down at the supermarket.
No, I've got a trolley token.
Ain't got money to buy a trolley token. Spend it on LARP.
if you've got £1, you've got enough to buy a trolley token.
Yeah, I ain't got down where I am.
I can hook you up with a trolley token for ATP.
Ooh. Discount.
If you're interested.
Mates rates.
Mates rates, yeah. I'll only charge you 82p for it. So We talk about icy currency. Yeah, coins. Cool. This is the physical stuff. This is cool, fun. You go spend it, and then I guess we talk about material resources. Yeah, Ed, if you don't mind. Like,
Yeah.
obviously,
So
materials are like you sort of listed them earlier about like stuff from mines and forests and stuff. But I guess we don't know if we got photos. If we do, maybe.
What's that for?
Materials. I was going to say if we want to
Yes.
talk about. Obviously, these you kind of covered again. You can get it in your player packs. They're circulating everywhere. But yeah, if you want to rattle off some knowledge.
Let's see if we've got a picture.
yeah, show me a picture and I'll tell you what it is.
Bah!
Oh, you got all the pictures. So starting in our top is green iron.
Mhm.
So green iron is, as it sounds, iron. It's a metal. It comes from your mine resource, along with orichalcum and silver. So those three all come from your mine resource. I believe Tempest Jade does as well.
Yes, so the top four are
From
the
Oreo
mine
mine.
resources, and the bottom four are the forest resources.
Brilliant. So yeah, so green iron, orichalcum, Tempest Jade, and welt silver all come from your mine, like Mark said. Then your other four down the bottom, ambergelt, beggar's lie, dragonbone, and iridescent gloaming, all come from your forests. All of these can also be obtained through fleets, as well as military units, as well as just general trading in Anvil.
It's safe. So I guess we could say that these resources here, plus other things like Liao and herbs and mana crystals, which are cards. So we'll ignore that for now. But yeah, these are physical. These are all the resources that are floating around in the game, right? So there's not like another list of other resources. These are the main ones that sort of everyone can get hold of, everyone can use.
Yeah, exactly. So these are the ones that, as heroes of the Empire, we have easy access to. They come in 3 different sizes. So your 1 measure, which is smallest denomination, your 3 measure, and then your 5 measure. So obviously denoting to different sizes, and they're bigger fizz reps as well. So for example, I've got a singular green iron here. As you see, it's fairly small.
Ooh.
And then the bigger ones get bigger and chunkier.
And they're obviously marked as well. So green iron is marked by a sword, and you can see in the picture you got 1 sword, 3 swords, and 5 swords. Orichalcum, little shields, welt silver, teardrops almost.
Yeah.
And yeah,
then,
that kind of.
I think I couldn't get it in the frames, but the Tempest Jade and the Ambergel are both smaller. Those are the largest denominations.
So Tempest Jade have little lightning bolt zigzags, and Ambergel have
chevrons, isn't it?
I can't remember.
Chevron.
There should be a wasp symbol on the Ambergel. Yeah, there should be a wasp symbol on the Ambergel.
But yeah, so the Ambergel as well will also have like a Roman numeral on it, which will tell you the size. But generally, the size of the material will give you an idea, purely based on how much like resin they've put into it.
And then I guess so again, stating the obvious that these are physical items you can hold, and again, it's a nice feeling having these physical things. Again, for immersion and stuff like that, you've got these physical items you can go out and trade, use, and stuff like that. Again, it's just great production value of the game. But I guess it's worth asking, Ed, what? Obviously, we can buy and sell these resources, right? But then there's obviously uses for these resources as well.
Yep. So these resources are mainly used in things like artisans items. So magic items that give your player buffs. So it might give you the ability to use a certain hero call. It might give you more bleed out time. It might be able to. So one of them, for instance, lets you use any herb as a different herb. They're all used in different amounts in making these items. with the skill artisan. They're also sometimes used in rituals. So, for example, there's a awesome ritual which lets you convert certain measures of things into certain other measures, and it goes around like a wheel faction. So yeah,
I know there is
there-
a magic item as well crafted, which can allow you, for example, to use ambergelt to replace mana crystals as well, I
Hmm.
believe. But yeah, I guess they're consumables, aren't they? What these items are. And
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
lots of stuff you can use them in the game for. But yeah, along with cash, is going to be, if you're starting out in the game, this is going to be your what you're going to come across throughout the weekend.
Yeah, this is your gateway into trading, if you will, in Anvil.
I guess. Yeah, I mean, if you're trading, obviously you're going to be buying and selling. If you're new to the game and you want to do fighting, you're going to need these because you're probably going to want items like a better sword, for example, or armor. So you're going to have to come across this stuff. So you're going to have to buy it or whatever. You're going to have to come across it. And again, if you have a mine or a forest or a fleet, you're going to have this in your player pack. And obviously, you're going to do stuff with it. You're going to sell it or do artisan stuff with it. So, yeah, you're gonna this stuff here you're gonna come across all the time on your events because it's the most common resources floating around.
Stu's made a really good point. Actually, it is a great way to meet people and roleplay. It's probably the easiest way to get an IC conversation going, isn't it? Just say, "Have you got anything to trade?"
Yeah. Well, I think this kind of leads on to a bit of a sort of an economy side to it now, where we talk about trading, for example. So people always need these resources; they're always in demand. These resources, as well as mana crystals, Liao, herbs, and stuff. And that's where, obviously, Ed's experience comes in, where he's very much a trader in game. So, obviously, I guess the principles of trading is buy low and sell high. I guess there is room to make profit on here because supply and demand throughout the whole game, throughout the whole system. You're going to find someone selling something cheap, and you're going to find someone buying it expensive because they need it then and there. So I guess I mean, I would say we've had a pretty successful last couple of events when trading at the hall. I mean,
I'd say so. I think in terms of our personal growth, we've jumped up a lot. Purely based on, I'd say, luck most of the time. I had it last event where I had 4 or 5 people in a row lining up to try and do trading.
Yeah.
And then I've had previous events where I've done nothing. I physically couldn't shift stuff. So a part of it is about luck. Part of it is also about, like Mark said, going and meeting people, striking up that conversation, putting yourself out there, being a little bit more charismatic is the way I'd put it. So I like to pretend I'm charismatic. That's how I get around that one.
Well, fake it till you make it. It obviously works, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of personal stuff, yeah, I think we did really well last season.
I think you could say you said then, like, you've had events where you can't shift anything, but this will always sell. It's just sometimes you got to sit on it for an event.
Yeah.
There was
exactly.
a while ago when iridescent gloaming was sky high. So you were selling it silly, and then after a couple of events, it'll plummet back down. You'll get a boost into the economy, and then it'll level back out. And we've had it with bourse resources or green iron is quite common. Green iron is possibly one of the more common metals out there. That's normally quite low, but it's spiked fairly recently. But I guess it's like anything in an economy, right? It's up and down.
It's all really dependent on what PD would like to do. So the way they run the world can sometimes, like, if they give us an ability to go raid a certain enemy, and all the people who go on that raid get a load of Tempest Jade, for instance, because there's so much more of it, the price will drop, and then people will just sit on it. And then eventually it'll piece her out, and then it'll go back to a more stable level. and then we could get something where a mine collapses and then the supply drops, so then the price increases. It is really real world economy, just
Yeah.
on a much smaller scale.
I think we also, another example is recently we had, I think it was a ritual that was really common going on at the time, which used dragon bone, I believe.
Yes.
And you just found that dragon bone was, you couldn't get it anywhere. You couldn't buy it because it was just getting bought up and consumed straight away. And I remember, yeah, it was for an event or two that dragon bone was just so sought after. And it's just down to supply and demand of that, really.
Yeah. It's
But you made a good point about you said about how what PD want, because we're talking about this sort of economy that I would argue it's 90% player run, because players, you could say the influence of the players and what we're doing and what we want to do, but PD do have a control on it. I've made a note in our thingy bobs questions about money sinks and money dumps. Again, I don't know if you want to talk about. Well, Mark, you might have a bit more or a bit of an idea on money sinks and money dumps. If not, no, I can pass on.
Yeah, go on. Yeah. What?
Well, talking about sort of money dumps that PD can do to dump money into the game, or money sinks that PD can have to kind of get stuff out of the game, and obviously that's a balance on the economy that they can kind of tweak themselves. If it's running away in a certain way, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, the first one that comes to mind is the one that's happening very recently that came out yesterday in the winds. So I'm not going to talk about it particularly because it's IC stuff. But if you haven't read the latest winds, there's basically PD have orchestrated a way to inject bourse resources into the economy. So it's really kind of the first time I've seen that happen in the game on that kind of scale.
Which is really interesting how potentially that's going to affect.
I don't know if the intention is to drive the price down because the bourse resources have skyrocketed since the game first happened. But who knows? Other ways to inject money into the game, or I guess take it out of it. Obviously, technically anything that you do in the game is a way to keep the cash flowing in and out. So, like we talk about things like sinecures and stuff. They're whopper expensive, and mechanically for the game, the reason for that is so the money goes out of the game so it can be put back in again.
Okay, so building buildings is a good way to get a chunk of cash out.
Yeah, from a purely from PD's perspective, a good way of getting the cash from the players is to offer incentives, and that's all.
Yeah,
the game, when it boils down to it, it's incentives for you to spend your fake cash.
I guess as we were talking about this before we came on stream, about talking about armies and stuff, and how armies themselves have upkeeps, so they cost money. So you're constantly having this money go out the game. I thought of a good money dump, which Ed, you might want to talk about, which is public auctions.
Yes, yeah.
A way of getting stuff in, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So before I get onto that, do we want to talk about bourse resources? Because that's cropped up a few times, and I don't think we've actually said what they are.
We should probably cover bourse resources.
Tell you what, let's quickly talk about public auctions, and then we'll go straight into bourse. Because you're right. I
suppose it does connect to bourse auctions and stuff. I have a very quick question about back to resources. If we can jump back a bit, how many resources do you get in your pack if you say had a Tempest Jade mine?
Off the top of my head, I wouldn't be able to say. I've only ever been a fleet boy.
I was testing you.
I'm testing you.
Yeah,
I'm not an all-knowing guru.
I'd say 12, and do you know why? Because I just looked before I asked the question.
Cheeky.
I went off from our previous episode, remembering.
Yes, it's 12. But like we talked about in the last episode, there's ways to increase that, or can you diversify a mine and have different resources? Yeah, so you can reduce one to increase another and stuff like that. Cool. Just wanted to make sure we covered that.
Before I get distracted I just kind of, otherwise I'll go off on a tangent. But yeah, talking about public auctions then, I guess, right?
Public
So
auctions.
obviously they've changed it slightly now. It obviously, Ed, you can rattle about it. But I was only thinking about public auctions is other foreign nations can put stuff into those public auctions.
Yep, yeah. So the public auctions, they're stuff that is run generally at the Senate or the Senate building. They have a number of lots. I think it's about 40 for 2 days, and they effectively auction off items. So they can be resources, they can be artisans' items, they can be random things. So for once, I think there was a trumpet for some reason in the public auction.
Yeah.
And someone
I'll
actually
talk about
bought it
yeah,
for a
I'll talk
start.
about that in a minute because that's something that's changed recently. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Karen.
So these are things that effectively the profits then are divided. So the person who put the lot in, if it is bought, gets the majority of it back, but a portion of it goes then to the Senate building to effectively fund their
It goes to the civil
actions.
service, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's sort of like the basics of the public auction.
So what I was thinking about more along the lines of so you've covered it on there. So that's why I said it's changed recently. The trumpet thing. A few years back, public auctions were open to players inputting putting items into sell. Whereas you'd have, say, like 25% of the auction was actually lots from PD have put in. So this is why I was trying to use it as an example for money dumps. Money dumps. So PD now, the public auction now, players can't put anything in there. It's only lots controlled by PD. And this is what I was trying to say, where PD can chuck a load of items into this public auction for the players to go buy. And it's a way of them dumping resources in. And this is where you can get, it's quite often you'll get a couple of bourse resources per lot, or 10, I don't know, welt silver per lot. So it's just a way of them dripping in some resources that then allow the players, it's just another way of players getting their hands on resources without having to interact with other players. But yeah, obviously previously the public auction players could put stuff in, and that's where you get random items like trumpets and teddy bears and stuff like that, which I've seen. Whereas now PD have changed.
Questionable photos.
Yes, force pictures and stuff.
Yeah.
But now PD have said, it's sort of only PD stuff now.
Yeah.
But again, this is a money dump. It's a way of them putting lots in that players can go buy. And yeah, it's just a way of them sort of trickling in some sort of items and stuff like that, which is again, it's another money dump that they can kind of tweak perhaps if they want.
There are also player-run auctions.
Yes.
So, which PD do influence. So we recently had one that we hosted, I think would be the word, at our hall.
Yeah.
And PD then, that went so well the first time that PD sent this herald of an eternal interact with the person who was running it. So PD do influence those
to
a lesser degree than the public auctions. So they can also inject things in that way.
This was almost a spin-off from public auctions doing away with players having access to them. Now players have been forced to make their own auction houses, and PD have kind of latched onto that, and they did, I think, an Eternal set a challenge to basically all these auction houses and said, hey, I'm going to come check them out, and whoever's the best auction, I'll come see you the next event. And we were lucky that the person that was running an auction at our camp, because we hosted it because we got a big enough tent, they won. So they got some special items sort of given to the auction to sell the event after, so which was really cool. Auctions obviously, so we've recently stumbled into one, haven't we, Ed? Over in
Varushka.
Which we're hoping to go back to because it was actually a really good auction, and it was
well run. It went smoothly. We were able to easily bid on lots because it wasn't like normally like the public auction, it's everyone. It's full,
Yeah, I mean
and you
public
can't really get a seat.
public auction. Normally, you get the big dogs go with silly money. And from mine and Ed's experience in the past, we've been to a few auctions, and you have the same 5 or 6 people there who've got a load of money, and they're just hoovering stuff up, and you can't really compete with that.
That and
yeah.
if you're a little quiet soul like I am, trying to shout in a room of 20, 30 people is not great.
No, I have never been to an auction at Empire, so I'd be keen to go to that one in Vrishka. I did see the door into it last time.
Honest, it's a good way to make money, but it raises another point of in the auction we did. Remember, Ed, when we went to that auction and they were auctioning off a lot for 75 welt silver?
I don't remember that.
No? Oh, okay. Maybe not then, but basically, Mr. Rich League person.
I know the one.
You know who I'm on about, yeah.
Mr. 100 throwing coin.
Yeah, I think they overpaid on the welt silver by something quite silly. And we were thinking at the time, if you go to an auction, the idea is you buy it a bit cheaper there to go and sell it. But this person paid over the odds for this welt silver, and it was just like, well, what's the point?
He must have desperately needed it.
Well, yes, and maybe no, because if you need it, you're going to pay over. Like we went to that auction in Varushka, and that person paid over the odds for mana. Fine, but I guess if you're buying like 75 welt silver, you're taking that away from everyone else.
Yeah, but it then creates that you have a monopoly on it.
Exactly.
So you can then influence the prices.
Which is the economy that is Empire, which can easily happen. If someone's I'll tell you what, I'll mention bourse resources now, and then we're going to go into bourse resources as a bit of a segue. But exactly that, if there's a couple of people or a bit of a syndicate almost that have a monopoly on quite a few of the bourse seats, then all of a sudden they control, say, 20% of the bourse that goes into the game. Boom, they can control it. And that's another interesting side of the economy. It's not just about buying and selling, it's creating a demand. And then profiting off it, which brings us on to bourse.
He's a pro, isn't he? He is a pro.
Good. Smooth intros, smooth as silk.
So, I guess we'll talk about bourse resources first, and then Mark, I don't know if you want to tackle the next subcategory of what is bourse.
So, what is bourse? Yeah.
Yeah. So in our little question thingy, we got kind of what is bourse auctions, blah blah blah. But I guess to start with, we'll let Ed talk about bourse resources themselves.
Cool. So, bourse resources, they're kind of like the step up from your standard resources. So, they're represented in the world as large sums of valuable material. So, for people in Anvil, it's represented by a lovely little note of paper, because there's no way you're going to be able to ship all of this stuff to Anvil to then ship it somewhere else. It's just not practical.
Is it meant to represent like a ton or something like that?
I can't remember the metric amount.
It's referred to as wains, isn't it?
It's referred to as a wain, but it is just a large quantity. So there are 3 main ones and then a 4th one. So your 3 main ones, which I'm hoping Mark's getting photos for.
I just come onto the. I'm sorry to interrupt, Ed. I just came onto the wiki to get the photos, and I've just read that each wain is supposed to weigh 500 kilos.
Ah, that's not that heavy.
Yeah.
I've watched people lift that.
Well, you carry 4 wains around with you most of the time, don't you?
Just in my bag.
Strong man.
Swinging from my belt.
Yes, I am going to try and get some pictures up in a second.
Amazing. So I'll continue then. So there's 3 main ones, which is weirwood, white granite, mithril, and then your 4th random one is ilium. And that is denoted as rings of ilium as opposed to wains of mithril, white granite, etc. So those are the big resources. Now, the reason why they're big is that they can be used for various large-scale projects. So there you go, that's a mithril one. What you won't see is that little throne is shiny, and I'll get onto that in a bit.
More production value, great
More
look.
production value. So they're used for big scale projects, things like sinecures, which will generate you specifically income in terms of resources. They can make, is it ministrettes? I want to say it's pronounced. The one where, so effectively you build it and then people can bid and buy it.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, well anyone can do that. So a ministry or a sinecure are two different types of buildings, and it's when you build the building, right? You can say how ownership is settled, and that can either be through tenure, through voting, or through bids, I believe. So yeah, that's cool stuff.
Yeah, and then the final big thing for it is upgrading your personal resource. So each one of these big three are used to upgrade a variety of personal resources. So weirwood, for instance, is used to upgrade fleets, and I believe also herb gardens. And you need a number of those to upgrade each season. So for instance, if you're going from a base level fleet to a level 2 fleet, you need 2 weirwood. And so on and so forth up the ranks. And this increases your income, your passive income in your player. Ilium's different. Ilium, good old Ilium. The main use that I know for is to create legendary artifacts.
I do have an Ilium picture.
Yes.
You do have an Ilium picture, excellent.
I think, yeah, it's worth saying Ilium is a sort of a physical block, isn't it? Rather than a shiny banknote.
Yeah. So with, and I'm sure this will be covered later, but with artisans items, they only last for 4 seasons, so a year. If you create it with Ilium, as well as the regular resources used to make it, it becomes infinite, and you can use it forever.
Oh, cool.
But
I did not know that.
It is very expensive to do so. So a lot of people don't do it. There are other uses for Ilium, but I haven't delved into that personally. But the main 3 are weirwood, white granite, and mithril.
And I guess again you've sort of covered it anyway, but these I always look at these as building materials rather than like the others like green iron and stuff, which are like crafting materials. So like mithril, for example, mithril is used to upgrade military units and to build armies. And I always think that as well. They use mithril to make the armor and stuff. Weirwood is used for fleets. Well, boats are made out of wood. Well, boats that float are made out of wood. And white granite, for like making kind of ministries and stuff like that. Well, actually, that changes slightly.
Big imposing.
I always think, great works and stuff. White granite makes sense. That's how I think of it. So these represent sort of, again, like a half a ton worth of resource is represented in these banknotes.
Cool.
Which, that's how I always think of it anyway.
It felt very cool to hold my first bourse resource last year. Very enjoyable.
Yes, yeah. The last year we, as a whole, were actually able to get involved in bourse resources for the first time. So we, after so many years, we finally accrued enough to be able to start investing in these larger resources and gathering them.
It's funny to think when I first started playing how out of reach these were. Really.
Yeah.
But actually, if you go around the field enough talking to people, it's actually not as out of reach as you think. And, I think the first season we actually took an interest in collecting bourse. We ended up having like 5 or 6 by the end of the weekend.
Yeah, it's it's based on knowledge, really. So once you know roughly how much something should be going for, which is something I won't get into, you can then go, right, okay, I'm willing to put this much in to potentially get this profit. and then you start looking at it in terms of rolling things forward and getting that snowballing effect. So we've got to that stage now. We can start doing it with bourse.
I guess with like any trading, you know, if we're trading in green iron and we want to make a 10% profit, you know, you're looking at what, 2 rings profit. Whereas if you're trading in bourse resources and you want to make a 10% profit, you know what? Without doing quick maths, that's like a couple of crowns at least, isn't it? So
yeah, effectively your denominations are just increased.
And if you think like a 10% price in buy sell, isn't that it's achievable, isn't it? A 10%. Yeah, if you got your trading hat on and you think I want to make a minimum 10% on this profit, that's doable. And as soon as you step up from base materials to bourse resources, all of a sudden it's easier to make cash rather than trading in a couple of rings. You're trading in a couple of crowns, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you're lucky enough to snap up something at a low cost. And
like we've come across bourse and base materials dirt cheap or really expensive. You know, it's right time, right place coming across.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like we've had it where we've literally just bought something and then someone's come up saying, "Oh, I'm selling this for cheaper than what we bought it for," and then we don't have the funds to buy it at the cheaper price. Things like that happen.
Yeah, we've had a good question in the chat talking about what we can spend icy money on.
Yeah, we'll leave that for question time.
I thought I deliberately mentioned that we're going to leave it till question time.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It might be a good time for a drink break, though.
Yes, please.
We are coming up on the hour.
And then, Mark, if you want to lead away with the bourse in general.
The bourse.
We've spoken about the resources, and we're going to talk about how to get them.
Yeah, I will try. It's not my strong point, but I know a bit.
I'm excited to hear what you say.
Well, you are an expert.
How much knowledge I've imbued in you.
Well, I'm gonna go away and think of a fun story that is definitely true about how we get bourses. Anyway, on to bourse. The bourse auctions. Is that what you wanted me to talk about? The bourse auctions. How do you get a bourse resource? So I didn't come up with a silly story. It's just what I think happens. So they hold auctions for the resource seats. Each seat gets auctioned off, and each seat gives a certain amount of that resource. But the seats go for absolutely crazy money because you get like many wains of the resource. And then it's up to
the seats represent.
Sorry?
But what do the seats represent, Mark?
What do you mean, what do they represent?
Well, are they a physical chair, or are they a mine that Mithril gets pulled out of?
Oh, yeah. So the you get the resource, and the resource comes from a mine, much like regular resources do.
Grows out the ground.
So what I was trying to say is it's a physical building that is on the map somewhere. That is susceptible to be captured.
But it's not physical. It's a theoretical building somewhere.
Well, in terms of the game, it's the physical.
It's not physical, though, is it?
Yeah. It's a fantasy physical thing.
Yeah, it's physically in the world we live in.
Yeah.
But it's not physically in the field, sorry,
Yeah. There you go, bourse, done.
Bourse, done. Let's move on. No.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, bye.
No, I am very new into. Well, I don't know or particularly care where they come from as long as I can have them and enjoy them. So my knowledge of it is very basic. I don't know if either of you guys have anything to add.
Ed's probably gonna have.
Yeah, probably. Yep. So you got the bare bones correct. So the bourse auction is the big way in which bourse resources are injected into the game. The bourse auction happens 4 times a year. However, each one in each season is for a different resource. So I don't know which way round it works, but one season it'll be weirwood, the next mithril, the next white granite, the next ilium,
and
it cycles round. So the seats only last for a year. and you bid on owning that seat for a year. So, for example, in Wintermark, there are a number of different seats, and in that time, you can bid on owning that seat for a year, and then you get all that resources. Each season, it generates a number of resources that you get. When that year's up, it then goes back up for auction. All of the profits then go into the Empire. So it funds things like the Treasury and like funding armies and all that sort of jazz. Like you've already said, they go for silly money at the moment because they generate a lot of bourse. Some of them 15 a season, some of them near 30 a season. It's a
You
lot.
could be talking 500 thrones to buy one of these seats, can you?
Yeah, easily. The interesting thing is, if the player who owns that seat dies, either through the person retires the character, or they die in battle or under mysterious circumstances, the seat comes back up for auction that season. So you can get it at but it will re-auction again.
Yeah, you get a discount rate, don't you? Because you could only finish its term rather than starting afresh.
Yeah, exactly. So that could be a cheaper way to get some bourse. So that is the bourse auction. It's again generally run in the Senate building because it is run by the administrative power of the Empire. The other ways in which PD inject bourse into the economy is through like player run things like raids on foreign nations, trading with Eternals, that sort of thing. These very specific events that PD will put through. But those are the main two ways. They're relatively controlled because it is such a valuable resource. In terms of like the sites and things like that, like Matt's already touched on, it can get taken away. If the territory that the site is in is conquered by an enemy, we can't get to it. How are we going to mine the mithril, for instance? So you can just lose your seat, which
I think your sort
the economy.
It kind of brings us on to talking about Icka's Tears, right? So Icka's Tears is a mithril mine that was in Wintermark. And I don't know, a couple of years ago it was taken away. You know, I'm gonna guess. Well, it was Jotun, right? Jotun, enemy orcs. They invaded the territory, and I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a, I think there was a skirmish to go fight at Icka's Tears to defend it or something like that. I think. So it was actually like something PD put on as a skirmish. So, and it's worth saying if you've like you Ed's just said about bidding on stuff to buy a seat, if you own the bourse seat, then it's your responsibility to look after it. And Icka's Tears came up where it was captured or attempted to be captured. So then the chap who owned it, an alderman of Wintermark, he kind of gathered people, went on a skirmish to sort of like try defend it or something to do with that side of it, which is really cool because it adds game for those who own it, you know. And then I've for another example, I know someone who owns an Ilian bourse seat, and I think it flooded or something like that, and it's just wrecked it. So it's kind of their now responsibility to invest back into that seat to boost the production back up. So they've got to pay into it to kind of repair it almost. Icka's Tears is a good one because we've obviously now got it back again. So now Wintermark has this mithril seat again, bourse seat. And also, I believe as well, when it's in enemy control, they gain access to those resources. So now I don't know how much that works, but yeah, they've obviously got a load of mithril out of it whilst we didn't control it.
Yeah. So in terms of the Jotun, I would assume that their military power would increase similar to how players would invest in their own military power. Hopefully. I hope they didn't just like skyrocket their power. That would be real bad.
Find out.
Yeah, find out. But yeah, those are your seats. There are different types of seats. So there's national seats, which only people from that nation can own. So, for example, I, as a Wintermarker, can't own a Varushkan seat.
That's a really good point. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, there's general ones which anyone can buy, which is the easy way or the easier way to get into it. But those are the main two types.
Yeah, so that's enough. Yeah, so obviously you say about national seats, which only someone in that nation. But yeah, so potentially a Wintermarker could own a bourse seat in Varushka, for example, if it's a Imperial bourse seat rather than a national seat, which is quite interesting. Rather than national seats, which is cool. Which is argument of we again, I think we spoke of it pre-stream, talking about how many bourse seats are in a certain nation and how many are how many are only limited to national seats and how many are imperial seats. So you might have a nation, for example, with no national seats, which means potentially if they're outbidded in the bidding game, then no one from that nation can own those bourse seats, which means all that bourse resource that is generated in that nation has been taken to a different nation, which leads to these sort of certain nations being really wealthy and other nations not so much. Which is again just an interesting side of the economy.
Yeah, very much so. I think that is a pretty good overarching view of the bourse. That's very high end side of the economy to Empire, definitely. But it's something to aspire to if you're a trader or you just want to make cash, or you want to invest in, building crate works and stuff. It's a good.
If I was to split the game in half, right, put a line down the middle, you've got in the field and what the players actually do on one side, and the other side, which is the grand tactical campaign map of Empire and where all the numbers are crunched and all that. So you could argue that more or less the one side where everyone's in the field, you're going to have all these low level materials like your green iron, your stuff like that. That's where you're buying a new sharper sword, or you're buying armor, or you're buying a ritual staff. And bourse sort of leaks into that as well, where you're upgrading your resources. Fine. But then when you got to go to the kind of the big tactical side of it, number crunchy side, that's where the bourse resources really come in, because they're going to be building buildings, they're going to be upgrading armies, and obviously, improve obviously certain special things when it comes to buildings or great works and stuff like that. So I feel like if you were to really try split it, that's how I see it anyway. The bourse, when you're thinking in the field, you're sort of going the smallest side of it. When you're thinking bigger, that's where resource really comes into it, and that's where nations need to get hold of a load of resources because they want to do something big. That's where they want to get on the bourse. That's how I see it anyway.
I always it's not really at all this way, but it always seems to me like standard resource stuff is free to play content, and then bourse stuff is premium content. And if
you have to invest into,
if you're at that level, then you're invested in the game.
Yeah, I mean, so if I were let's number crunch it. If you were to, we've said on a previous stream, Ed, you'd probably agree. If you got a player pack at your first event, you'd probably have just over a throne's worth of coin or resource in there, right?
Yeah. And
you look at a bourse resource, and normally a bourse resource is going to be 5 times what you make in a player pack.
Yeah, about that.
On more of an average prices, without talking prices. Yeah, so you could spend 5-6 events before you can even, assuming you don't spend any money, before you can even buy one of these. Which
if you do nothing other than accept what's in the pack,
sit on it.
Which obviously yeah, that very slightly segues into sort of this what I've categorized as player run economy, which is
and this will kind of answer a couple of the questions we've had naturally.
yeah. So if you were to just take from your player pack, that's what you're looking at. But obviously, there's other ways to bring into the economy, right? I don't know if Mark, you want to talk about it, but because you do one of these, you do make something and sell it.
I do, yeah. So a massive way of creating income, IC income, is to make stuff and sell it for IC coin at an event. Simple as. Loads and loads of people do it. It's a great way of making cash. Most of the hall, I think, at some point has made something or sold something for in-game money. Me personally, I've been making soap and stuff. I did it was a long time ago, and I'm gonna try and bring it back. But I made some like crumbly fudge stuff, which went down well. Went down well in the Brass Coast. A lot of sweet tooths over there. Yeah, Lucan's lumps. Colloquially known as Lucan's lumps. Yeah, and then the soap. Obviously, the soap's the most recent venture. But obviously, Ed, you've done very well on some of your beverages.
Yeah. So I brew mead, which is probably the best thing that I've done. An awful lot of people do a lot of brewing. There's a lot of ciders on site. There's meads. People flavored gin. I believe Tom did like a mold cider last
he did mold
winter
cider.
event, which I think went down very well. I do things like leatherworking, so I sell things like bracelets and all that sort of jazz. A lot of jokes have been going around about my little pencils, the Essevain pencils, as I like to call them.
I thought it was a great idea.
It's filling niches. It
was a great idea until Tom ruined it.
Yeah.
By when you selling a pencil for a ring, and then Tom making the realization of how many pencils you'd have to sell to make.
I'd have to sell loads, but
yeah,
it's a ring more than you had before.
It's a ring more than you had before, exactly.
Plus, then someone has a pencil to write something down with, which I always struggle with because I can't remember nothing.
I'm always coming over, and I honestly, because you sell them at my mum's shop, who sells it in character, and I'm always going over and getting pencils.
So you probably owe. You owe Scout about £4 in pencils.
No, I pay for them. It's just take one. I can't just take one. I don't pay for it. It's a ring.
Take it out of the shop earnings.
A lot of people do bring out of character things in character to sell them. So a lot of people make savoury goods.
I guess as long as they're in the theme of the game, like.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't go take a PlayStation game and try flog it in character.
Yeah, you can't go buy a packet of crisps and then try and sell it. People are like, nah.
Although
go away with that.
I have seen some very there's obviously there's no bar for quality or anything, just get involved. I have seen some that is just somebody's opened a bag of nuts and put them in a different bag and sold them as a bag of nuts. It's fair enough. But for me personally, I take more enjoyment from making the stuff myself.
Yeah, I've seen a similar thing. I've seen someone selling like board sweets. But they were obviously they bought a pack of board sweets, put them into like an icy bag and sold them, but they were still like plastic wrapped and stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the players made a comment about it, like, "Oh no, I'll only buy something if it's homemade," or something like that. And I was like, "Yeah, fair enough." Again, you can easily, and I've heard the same. Like people say they buy a pack of biscuits and go around selling them. Fair, but also I think people in the game appreciate people that put time into making stuff.
Massively. As a buyer,
people make pizzas, which are cool.
As a buyer in game, 100%, I would go for something that somebody's handmade.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
that's down to the players.
Yeah. A couple of events back, I was hanging around a load of other artisans, and a lot of these people do a lot of crafty stuff anyway. And someone got out some like acid etched discs with runes on it,
Yeah,
and I was like, that's something I'd actually buy
yeah.
because
I thought about doing it, mate, but it's
Yeah.
quite fast.
it's an investment.
Mm.
But yeah, like you say, a lot of people, when it's handcrafted, it adds to the aesthetic of the game as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Like-
It adds to the world, doesn't it? Yeah, world building.
But yeah, that's one of the, I'd argue, probably one of the bigger ways people generate personal income is through selling things that they've made. The other way a lot of people do it is by selling services. So being
Yeah.
a foot runner.
Yeah.
I thought you said foot rubber.
Well, there's
And
one of
that,
those
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. There's something for everyone.
There's always
There
room
is
for
some.
foot rubber and all.
For a good foot rubber. But yeah, people need people to go run places, send messages.
I think Mark was with me when we were at Loomies a couple of events ago, and I was, maybe not. I think anyway, and someone like she came out and said, "Oh, I've left my tankard in the civil service." And she was like, "Oh, £2 for someone to go get my tankard." And this kid was like, "Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
do it."
I
Yeah,
was
go
there.
to the hub and get my tankard. He's like, "Okay," and off he
Yeah.
went. I'm like, fair play. That's £2.
That is a good point, actually. A big job that I see in Wintermark all the time is people paying runners just to run messages to people. Like there's if you all you have to do is put yourself out there a bit, and there's so many opportunities to make cash in game.
Yeah.
There
Well, I
is,
think if
yeah.
you can think of an idea, someone will need it.
Definitely.
And if it doesn't pan out, move on to the next idea. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I think what you guys said, like you can do stuff to the game to make that extra bit of coin, whether that's putting yourself out there to go, I'm sure if you confronted one of the bar tents and go, "Hey, do you want me to serve pints all night?" They'll pay you to do it, I'm sure. If not, yeah, you can you can be a runner, or you can make soap, or you can. I made necklaces. My first year of going, I made necklaces, and I'd walk around selling them just for a bit of cash. As long as it's in the game and in the theme, then you can kind of do whatever. And it's a great way of making that extra bit of cash. Like I said, there's quite a few of us that sell homebrewed alcohol as well, which always does really well. And you hear stories of, well, I bought someone making beef jerky a while back. I bought
yeah.
that was really nice.
Yep.
People trying brownies and fudge. There's always people selling brownies and fudge.
Yeah. It's one of those things with food and drink. Although it's very lucrative, you do have to be safe on it. You have to make sure that if you are making stuff, you don't get cross-contamination with allergens and things like that. And you make sure you say, if there's anything that could be allergic to, things like nuts, fish, all that sort of crap, you say, this has got it in it, don't eat it. Exactly like V says, know your ingredients.
Basically follow hygiene standards of the 21st century.
Yeah.
When preparing the food.
Yeah. Don't mix your flour with river water.
I think, Mark, you've said previously as well, like, you could easily drink on a weekend on in-character money, where you can borderline feed yourself on the weekend in in-character money,
Yeah.
Especially like recently when I've seen those people selling pizzas and stuff, I'd just go buy in-character pizzas on the weekend.
Absolutely.
And when there's access to make that in-character money, people are gonna, like, I've noticed a big shift recently where there just seems to be a lot more people doing that sort of thing to get in-character money.
Yeah.
Which is great for players, because you've got to work. Not only are you just buying in-game stuff for in-game money, you're also now buying drinks and food and clothing and stuff. People sell clothing and physical items and stuff for in-character money, which is cool. So there's that.
So that is, another topic we were going to cover under that was what can you do with IC coin? Obviously, the flip side of selling your goods is the buying of them. And we've covered food, drink, various services. I don't think there's anything else, is there?
Well, there was that professional masseuse doing like sports massages and stuff.
Oh yeah, there's a person in Wintermark that's I see it's a brothel or whatever, but it's an OC massage.
Technically,
sports
OC,
massage.
it's like a sports massage. So yeah, you can like IC just go along for you could pay for and they're like a professional masseuse, I believe. So you can just go pay for a massage, which is great.
Yeah,
if you fancied it. There's plenty you can spend your money on. Like I'll run it through normally. I don't Friday night time in. I just go straight to the Artisan's Arms, which is a pub tent in Wintermark, and I'll have 3 or 4 drinks whilst the moot's going on because I don't want to go stand at the moot listening to it. So I'll have a few drinks, all paid IC. You know, I wish there was more food options. I see like meals, but I understand doing hot meals is kind of awkward. But there was that place doing like breakfast rolls, wasn't there, or something like that, last event. They're doing like bacon and sausage rolls and stuff like that in the morning. Which is,
I think so.
Maybe I need to explore that. But yeah, like for example, with me, I never used to like drinking on icy money because I wanted to save all my icy money, but now when I've got not so much OC money, you got options there. You can drink for the weekend. Drink,
Well, that's the thing. A lot of people go there to do like the fighting and stuff like that, so they're not really going to be using their coin and stuff. So get food,
Here we
get drink
go.
with it.
Without pulling actually, no, it's not a question, so I can talk about it. It's in the chat. The crochet things from the marches.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, someone bought
Great collection.
A crochet spring onion from a cute marcher kid. Yeah, our hall has bought an insane amount of crochet animals from that exact kid.
Not just that, we've had pet rocks. I bought a gourd with googly eyes from Navarre last time.
You did buy that.
All kinds of shite, basically.
I bought a fine silk scarf from Faradon.
Oh god, you bought that scarf.
I bought it was actually in a Empire run thing, so technically it wasn't just players walking around. But
in a very high-end auction, you spent a lot of money.
That was high. The auction was more higher end than a bourse auction.
Yeah, it was run by an Eternal.
That was a very enjoyable
how
auction.
high end it is.
5 thrones at that auction.
Yeah,
but there's like again like player auctions as well. That's another thing to go spend money on. You go to a player. What did I do? I bought I bought a picture. I don't know what that is actually.
The horse pictures.
No, the weird snake painting. You seen that one? It's like a hand with I can't remember it now. It's a really bizarre painting. Someone did it and sold it in an auction. I bought that. I bought the general book and gave it to Phineas Smud. I think he actually reimbursed me some of the money. But yeah, you could auctions and stuff. There's tons of auctions about bubble tea. Mark's favourite.
I love a bubble tea. Sarin almost died drinking a bubble tea for some reason.
Yeah. Katie said I bought something at Reapers. I bought that. That wasn't at the auction though, Katie. That was someone sending me stuff.
Yeah, but it was you using icy money. Way more than you should have.
Yeah.
As well.
Well, it shows that as a character, you'd buy it. It's not so much about
as a drunk character, he did buy it.
Exactly. He's definitely playing drunk.
But what I without trying to justify my silly spending, I spent in character money for interactions with another person.
Exactly.
And it's game. You're making game in a way by doing that stuff, and I guess in character money and stuff facilitates that.
You did the thing with the things that are provided, so you can do the thing. Essentially,
I did a thing with things to do a thing, and that's it. There we go. So someone's put in the chat. Yeah, exactly. By the best things besides buying food and drink is stuff that creates roleplay, and that's why we're there.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, speak for yourself. I'm there to drink and be merry and do a bit of light RP.
With a stick.
No, I 100% agree. It's a great way of having those interactions that you might not otherwise get.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, do we want to talk about the final topic, and then we'll go on to question time?
is the final topic Imperial budget?
It is.
Okay.
I want to learn
Yeah.
about the Imperial budget, Matt. Tell us about it.
Do you want me to tell you? Okay, that's fine.
Well, unless Ed wants to.
No, I'll let Matt deal with this one.
Well, Ed has actually touched on it previously. So, Ed is talking about like how we do the bourse auctions and stuff when you buy a bourse seat. Now, I don't know this for certain, but he says the money goes to the Imperial budget or the Imperial Treasury, as they like to call it. And then that's a lump of cash, right? So if you do your bourse auctions and stuff like that, that money goes to the Imperial Treasury, and then that money is then pulled from by the Empire to do stuff. Now, the examples I can give is the Senate. Okay, so if we go to Senate, if I want to, Luke and Leifson has come to me and said, "Hey, Saren, you're my favourite Birchen hauler. Can you build me a Great Works?"
You tell us already
And
a fantasy.
And I go, "Of course, because you are also my favourite Birchen hauler."
Oh, I
And
can't believe this.
And I go, "Of course, I'll build a Great Works. I'm going to go to the Senate and I'm going to ask them really nicely to pay for it." And you go to the Senate and they go, Saren, you're our favourite Birchen hauler. No. And they go, "Of course, yes, we'll give you the money." And that's sort of how the Treasury works. You can ask money. You can go, "Oh, can I please have some money to pay for my Great Works or whatever?" And they go, the Senate then vote on it and they go, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And the money goes towards that. Now, obviously, there's a set amount of money. The most normally, from what I've seen from my experiences of going to the Senate and seeing it, it's normally around like 1,500 thrones. And then that's divvied up throughout the weekend on certain projects and expenditures and stuff like that. And they either underspend or overspend, and obviously they can't overspend because they've only got so much money. And if they overspend, it's going to deduct from next season's amount of money. So that's sort of how the Imperial Treasury works, is how obviously you can spend through the Senate. It does cover the costs of Imperial Army upkeeps as well, which I didn't know until earlier on when Ed told me. And I guess Imperial Navies, we don't have an Imperial Navy, so it doesn't really work. But yeah, that will do that. And also you can, again, kind of a Senate motion, but you can ask for some money from the Treasury as a motion and be like, "Oh, can you give me some money, please?" So yeah, it's basically like this pot of cash that the Senate has to play with, essentially. And also we talk about coming from bourse auctions. It also comes from taxes, national taxes as well. So each territory in the Empire has a sort of a value that they can contribute to in tax. The more wealthy and developed the region, I guess, the more tax they produce. And then that obviously goes towards the Empire. I've known in the past certain territories have a negative income, so it's actually costing the Empire money to have that territory. And I'd imagine that comes from the Imperial Treasury as well. But yeah, so the Empire itself has a pot of gold as well as all the players. And then yeah, that's where sort of buildings can kind of be built from and stuff like that. So the Empire itself has money to play with. It's not just the players. Which again, kind of this grand sort of you step back and have a look at the whole map. That's where this kind of feeds into there. So yeah, you can kind of do these bigger things in the game with this big pot of cash. So yeah, that I would say that's more or less what I'd want to talk about on the Imperial budget / Imperial Treasury. Just a big bunch of cash, and that pays for a lot of stuff. So yeah, if again, use an example, if you were a senator and you wanted something done, you've got options. You can either pay for it out of your own pocket, you can source the money and get someone else to pay for it, or you can just go to the Imperial Treasury and go, "Hey, Senate, I'd like to borrow this money to build this, please." And that reason for that's why the Treasury is there to help fund these things.
Nice. Well, I don't have anything else to add on it because I only found out about its existence when you started going on about it the other night. So I'm up to speed now as far as I'm concerned.
I was just actually, whilst we're on the Imperial Treasury, I think it's just I like the sort of number side of it, but it's sort of kind of it's player information. So it's not like PD sit there and go, this is how much money you got. It's kind of, you've got the master of the Imperial Mint, and you've got the auditor of the Imperial Treasury. So it's player titles, and then they get the information. So I'm guessing if you were the master of the Imperial Mint or auditor of the Imperial Treasury, maybe every event you'll get a thing pinged through saying, hey, this is how much money the Empire generated this season. So then you would then have to say, address the Senate and be like, this is what cash you got to play with. You know?
Yeah.
Which I think is quite cool. Quite a cool thing. Quite a cool title to have, and a position to kind of be in the... Yeah.
It then gives players an opportunity to go up to that person and say, hey, can we see where the funds for the Empire are going?
Yeah,
Why is this nation not getting funded as opposed to this nation or this resource or whatever?
Well, that's it. I think with the Imperial Treasury, you could argue that maybe a nation that's not bringing as much tax in and stuff, maybe that's going to play into whether the rest of the Empire think they should invest in that. You know, if you've got like some league regions that are just pulling in the cash, then maybe they're more willing to spend money on that because it's pulling it in. Whereas, say, Summer Suak, which has been recently captured back, maybe that's currently at a negative tax income because it's been pillaged by Yoda for a year. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, you know, or any nation or any territory that's at risk of being invaded. You know, would you gamble and go build a new Great Works there if it's just going to get captured next season? Maybe not.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting.
You run that risk anyway, don't you? No matter where it is.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I find that kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I just added onto the screen because we didn't have them earlier. A picture of the Liao card that you rip, and also I took the mana crystal. We haven't talked about mana crystals because I assume we'll go over them in more depth when we talk about magic in the Empire in a later episode. But it's just another resource that you can choose when you start a character. But yeah, those are the cards for them.
We did briefly mention mana crystals as sort of one of those resources, but it's just the fact they didn't have a physical item. It's got this sort of mana crystal.
It's because they're resources that you use them and they're gone.
Consumables.
Like you can use crystal mana as personal mana and then it's gone. So you have to rip the card and put it in your pocket, and not chuck it like them.
It's worth saying about all these card items, right? So all items that are represented by a card, they still require a physical representative to use. So if I had mana crystal cards, I should in theory have some sort of crystal representative.
Representation.
Like, that's it. That's what I was looking for. Be like, no, these are my mana crystals. I don't see it happen a lot in game, but it should technically happen, and people do it. Same with herbs.
Yeah.
If you've got herbs, or if you've got Liao, you should have this sort of thing to be like, yes, I've got the card, but also this is it here. And obviously, like, if you're using a mana crystal, it's not like you've got to smash your crystal up because you've used it. You can just pocket it and
hide it away, and
you know the cards, the mechanical
use it again
side
next
of it.
time.
Yes,
I think we should.
Crystal fizz rep.
Yeah, talking of having fizz reps for stuff, I think we should enforce that KT and V have fizz reps for every single herb they have.
Every single herb.
I just want to see them carrying all those herbs.
Carries a backpack full of bottles of herbs for her 100 stack of herbs.
Great big sprigs of dried out flowers hanging in birchnell.
That would be cool. That'd be awesome. You could hang them on the bunting.
Yeah.
Outside the tent.
All about prepping onions recently, and you just let them dry out.
Yeah, same with garlic.
Yeah, exactly. So we could just have a load of that. Which, do you know what this segue? Well, not segue, but earlier on, it's Smud, isn't it? Which is SX51.
Yeah.
Talking about selling tomato plants. Like, I absolutely wanted to do a marcher where I just get some homegrown like plants, make some, obviously trying to do growing and stuff in my garden at the moment, and then just take it to Empire and sell like tomato plants and
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, just try sell like saplings or something or whatever.
I actually think it would look really aesthetically cool to have herbs on your kit. If you're a healer and you use herbs, I think it would look very cool having them on like your belt or something.
Just like smudge sticks.
Yeah.
Rosemary and
lavender or thyme smells really nice.
yeah,
Mm.
rosemary.
It's a win-win.
Good stuff.
Or Casey grows some lovely lavender.
Tasty lavender.
Can confirm.
I've cut all my lavender down. But yeah, it's cool idea.
Yeah. Right. Shall we move on to some questions? We've got quite a few questions, and I'm gonna go through the utterly stupid to the genuinely interesting because
It sounds utterly stupid because I know exactly what you asked.
I'm gonna go from the top because I've managed to filter my activity feed to show just questions.
Ooh.
So right at the start, we had a question from Matt, and it said, "When is this starting?" 8 p.m. UK time, every second Sunday. Done.
Nice.
Then we had the same question from Katie and Tom. Where can I buy pencils? / where is the best place to buy pencils?
Me.
From Skal.
From Skal.
Do you keep them down at the shop at Applebee's?
Yes, yeah. So I have a little tankard at Matt's mum's shop, and they very kindly sell them for me, and give me the profits back.
Applebee's in the Wintermark, Moot Square.
Shout out to Applebee's Hall, which is an IC/OC trading shop in Wintermark, and they sell like sort of IC stuff as well as OC stuff. I know there is another IC selling people's open up recently. It's like is it called like something Trading Emporium or something like that?
Yeah, literally across the Moot Square from.
Yeah, they're selling IC stuff.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Look, healthy competition is good.
But again, it's I guess where you can go spend your IC coin, and I mean it's helpful for us because you can just dump stuff on their table and walk away, and they stay there all day selling. So.
And they accept IC and OC cash.
Yeah, certain things they do. So my sister makes like macrame stuff, for example. She sells at IC, but obviously happy to take some OC stuff for it. My mum makes clothing and sells that all OC. But she does do some stuff IC as well. So, but again, like I kind of say to them, like if they've got like an OC shop, but they're allowed to do it, and they've got an OC shop there. But like I always say, like if they do their frontage, if they try and make an effort of being IC and they do a frontage IC, they sell IC stuff. It makes it fit into the world a bit more, which they're obviously happy to do. They pay to play the game. It's not like they turn up for free. They still buy a ticket.
Yeah.
They play their characters and stuff. I do rituals for my mum every event, so she gets a buffed herb garden. So, but yeah, that's another thing you talk about. Like you can go and set up a shop there and sit there and sell stuff, which is cool.
Next question. This is one for you, Matt. How much money does everyone in Birchenhall owe Saren?
Too much.
I'm pretty sure that's a question for me because I know what people owe every.
Oh yeah, I suppose you know.
The great book.
The only thing is, luckily for Saren,
you are the Scalderman after all.
Yeah, there's 10% interest on it per season, so Saren's happy. He's making money.
Yeah, it's a lot. I think
it's a lot.
Many people owe Saren many things, and as a byproduct, owe Lucan many things because Saren spent all of Lucan's mana.
Partly true.
It's not partly.
Partly true. Partly true. With business partners.
Next, we have we're on to an actual genuine question now, which is very exciting. Only 5 questions in, and we're on a proper question. Is it worth upgrading my farm, or should I just do rituals? # Marcher problems.
Marcher.
Depends
what you want to do.
Yeah, this is for Ed. Yeah.
If you want to do it for an RP reason, 100% crack on. I'm looking at investing in my fleet for an RP reason. If you're looking at it from a mechanical point, not really. The amount of money you'd currently spend on bourse resource compared to the amount of money you'd get back, it'd take a while to get the profits from it. But if you're doing it for RP, crack right on.
I would almost butt in and say absolutely upgrade your farm because it's fun and it's
It's
gain.
fun. Yep. Plus, then you can look at making a will, which is more gain, and it's gain for other people as well.
True. It's just yeah, I guess it's what you want to do, you know. But yeah, it's do it. Why not? Have fun.
Spend your imaginary money.
It gives you a goal to work towards, doesn't it? If you have it, I want to upgrade my resource. It gives you something to work towards, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Katie asked, how do you guys make money besides trading resources, which obviously we have now covered. So hopefully you got a good bit of info from that. Sell pencils, make stuff, sell it, run errands, be a runner for people. Yeah, loads and loads of ways. The list is almost probably endless.
Loomies makes and sells tea, which is lovely.
Open a tea house.
Come to my escape room.
Tea house.
Do Scow's
Like
escape
Scow's
room
escape room.
in the Birchen Hall Wintermark Woods camp. Come on down.
TM.
TM.
Then we have an extremely serious question from Matt. How do I get cheap Maz?
Ask me very nicely.
Sam asked, is a non-Newtonian fluid a wet or a dry? We'll cover that in our non-Newtonian fluid at Empire video that is scheduled for 2025.
Yeah. But I guess a teaser to that video is what force has been applied when touching objects. Again,
I'm sorry, did you say what horse is being applied?
Force.
I heard horse.
And we have one question left. Why has Fireman Scowl not started the fire yet? It's getting a tad chilly.
I've been told not to.
You could argue that the reason why he hasn't is because the world's been burning since the world's been turning. So,
for those that don't know, Ed is our chief fire starter at Empire.
Yep.
He can make anything catch fire, basically.
Mm.
Not to worry.
Trademarked fire bridge.
Yes,
I believe.
The triangle of fire.
Scal, inventor of the fire bridge.
I have to just TM stamp every log that's in the fire bridge, so it's not copyright.
Stu wants to know how do we get cheap Maz? Tell us a riot, but V's already answered it. Come and see us at Birchen Hall, my friend. We'll get you the goods.
Traders.
Mates rates. Bring a tomato plant.
Dodgy deals only.
And that's a genuine thing. Making friends is great for making contacts and being able to trade more and just getting information.
It's not what you know, it's who you know. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we've covered some good bits about the economy at Empire. I think we're all well equipped now to go out there and make millions.
Silly money.
Thank you, everyone who has been in the chat tonight. As always, we really appreciate you guys being there. Without you there, it is literally just us lot chatting to each other, which is fine, but we like to chat with you guys too. If you're not already in the Discord, please do hop in. We are currently trying to build it up. And if you, I'm sure everyone in here already has, but if you haven't, we are on Facebook. You can follow us at Yet Another LARP Podcast. The Discord is... does it come up when I do this? I think I did a thing last time. Yep, so you can find all our links there. Currently on Facebook, YouTube, and Discord. Please hop in and enjoy the spaces that we've created. We need to enjoy them more as well, I think. Yeah. Next episode, we will be talking about herbs and healing. Specifically.
Herbs and healing.
How to stay alive.
Herbs.
At Empire.
With my two favourite Birchen Hallers.
Who are the finest healers that you will have ever had the pleasure of having your insides pushed back in by?
Two of the finest healers in the live stream chat.
That's just a weird kettle of fish there, Mark.
That's because you haven't been on the battlefield covered in arrows and
My
had
insides stay on the inside.
and Lettuce had to pull so many arrows out of Lucan in one battle. But that should
So
be
are we
really
going to give you the hero title, Luke and
I'm
the Pincushion?
good.
Yeah, I'm
Lucan the
starting to
Holy.
think it's a let shooting the arrows. To be honest. Things an arrow in
Oh, I
your
wouldn't
back,
put it
runs
past
over. Can you help me?
So yeah, we've got that coming in a couple of weeks' time. So keep an eye out for that. This video will be going out on Wednesday. So if any of you have joined late and want to catch the start of it, it will be going out on Wednesday. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much. I've been Mark.
I've been Matt.
And Ed has
I've been
been Ed.
It's been me.
Until the next one, guys. We'll see you then. Much love.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.